to the Deferred Compensation Advisory Committee meeting. Looks like we have everyone here that is going to be here. So I'm going to give it to Connie, who's going to tell us a little bit about how the public can participate in this meeting.
Sure. I'll take roll call first. This is Connie Swisher, a recording secretary, taking roll call. Chair Meadow Darcy.
Here.
Deborah Spalding.
Here.
Monica Alvarez.
Here.
Ben Guzman.
Here.
And Pete Volan in for Dave Collins.
Here.
Thank you. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361. Committee members and staff may participate via phone and video conferencing. The Park District is providing live video and live audio streaming for this meeting. Members of the public wishing to make a public comment can do so in 3 ways: live via this Zoom meeting, by submitting an email to me at cswisher@ebparks.org, or leaving a voicemail for me at 510-544-2100. This information is noted on the agenda located at the Park District website, www.ebparks.org. If there are no other questions, we can start the meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so our first agenda item is the approval of the November 9th meeting minutes. Everyone have a chance to review the minutes, and are there any proposed changes or questions? Connie, if I could just correct the spelling of my last name, D''A.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
All good. And then I think Dave Collins has 2 L's. Any other comments or changes to the minutes? Okay. So if someone would like to make a motion, if a voting member would like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Okay, so people has made a motion to approve the minutes as amended, I assume, right? And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and Deborah Spalding is second. And so, okay, any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. These voting members, if you could please vote aye, nay, or abstain. So go ahead.
Aye.
People, and there we go.
Does Connie take a roll call vote?
Oh, sorry, yes, Connie, I think you take a roll call vote, correct? Thank you.
Connie Swisher taking roll call vote? No, not a roll call vote. Okay, well, I'll do it anyway. Chair Meadow Darcy.
Aye.
And then we have Pete Volan.
Aye.
Ben Guzman.
Aye.
Deb Spalding.
Aye.
And Monica Alvarez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, our next item on the agenda that is work plan, and well, why don't we do a review of the agenda just to make sure there isn't anything pressing as we go through, or are we required to stick by the time frame on the agenda? Okay. Okay, so we have the work plan and leadership awards, and then we have fiduciary recommendation staff report. Then we have participation rates and peer benchmarking for Mission Square, peer-to-peer exchange sessions, and then Deborah has the in-person meetings, and then public comment. Does anyone have any updates or changes to the agenda as far as any of the subjects? Okay. Okay, so the first one is the work plan and leadership awards. So we talked a little bit, there's not a lot of time on here, but we talked a little bit last time about potentially submitting a project for the leadership awards that NAGDA puts on. I don't know if we will have time. It's a pretty short timeline, but we definitely could go through the exercise definitely as an as-if, so that we can prepare maybe for next year, or even get some and structures that are underway. We also have on here the work plan. So I'm going to kind of focus on that a little bit more. I put together a document. Let me share screen. Can you all see that screen? The Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, it's a little small for me, but
Here you go.
yeah,
So,
better. Thank you. Thank you.
so I just kind of put together our committee meeting dates. I put the board finance meetings on here for the year. And then these were just some of the sort of annual topics that we had been talking about over the years to put on our, work plan that just kind of never materialized. So I put a couple of these on here. Nothing is set in stone. This is just really a draft that I put together. But I got on here some points where we review some of our finances. We have an annual review of our bylaws. And then we also plan for different events. So down here, I'll just show you real quick. Down here, I put a little key. So each color is either training, planning, review, or an event. So these are all planning items here. So planning for the NAGDA conference, setting meeting dates or drafting a work plan, things like that. Planning for the Leadership Recognition Awards. And then these events, October is National Retirement Security Month. It's also the NAGDA conference this year in Seattle, Washington. And then I put on just some basic committee training for each meeting. Sorry, I'm to make you dizzy. And I put down all of the peer-to-peer exchange sessions, which are the sort of local NAGDA information sessions in which different agencies can meet together and exchange ideas about a large variety of topics. And I believe there's also starting up now, there's a California specific peer-to-peer starting up. So this is just sort of a draft, but I wanted to at least get us started on something. I think Hillis, we could probably use your weighing in on things we should be doing, during what time frame. I don't think we have enough complete time today in our 10 minutes on this presentation topic to go through it in detail. This is something we could also have one of our subcommittees work on. I think we have the participant outreach and the finance committee. Not really sure how to administratively handle this exercise. So I'm not really sure if this is something that we do in an ad hoc meeting. Oh, good. Deborah has her hand up. That's great. Go ahead, Deborah.
First of all, I want to say this is fantastic. I really like the way you organized everything and really helpful. And I don't think we're stuck with just like we thought it would take 10 minutes, but if it goes longer, I think that's okay. I know nobody wants to spend their whole day at this meeting, but I don't think we have to limit ourselves to 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's longer. And then the only other thought I had is, I think we want to do the investment review of the Mesereau report each quarter. So I know it's already a crowded.
I mean, if we, I think that's one of the issues is like, let's put all the things we're supposed to be doing, and then we can evaluate whether we actually have enough time to do it, because I think found in the quarterly meetings was there just wasn't enough time. So, and IPS, I didn't know what IPS was. Let me know what
investment policy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, now the policy and investment review, do we together or?
Yeah, usually they go hand in hand. So Chaz will come in, go over the investment policy statement, because that sort of dictates his analysis and the issues that he's raising, if there are any, with the investments. So coincide. So I think they go together.
Okay. So I can, I did have it. So you said we should be doing it every meeting?
I think it's every quarter, right? So it's a quarterly report we get from Mesereau. And then I know, Hillis, we talked about the timing, like it's only available.
Right. So there's a delay in between, right? So for the first quarter, it'd probably be good to actually go over it in May.
So this one for the first. Okay. So, okay. And not in January. Well, we can figure that out.
Yeah. So we have to like think of it a quarter.
Okay, so let's do quarter, right? So this is quarter one. Okay. And then what do we have for the next quarter would be which?
So we do it in August, is that right?
Well, but let me think. And so we don't have our meetings, so we would review it in the next following meeting, right? Okay.
Right.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. So then we would go here and here, I assume, right? And this would be quarter 2. And this would be quarter 3. And then I assume there would be one in January, what, February?
We can do Q4 in March, or is there a meeting in February?
I guess they're all falling on non-meeting days, but I think we would just review the next meeting is what I would assume, right? Because here's our meetings up here. We're only every other at this point.
Got it. Yeah, so it'd be the March one for Q4.
So if we just put it in February, right? And then we would review it at our next meeting. Is that correct? Because otherwise we have to move them into non-quarters, right?
I think move it into the
We have to move.
March meeting, just so we can see what's on the agenda more clearly, like, oh no, we have 10 things on the agenda.
Right, okay. So we'll put this one here. And then that one is on, so then this one, we'd have to move to here. And then quarter 3. Okay, there we go. So that would work. Okay.
I can't see the months at the top one, but I'm sure you're doing it right.
Okay.
Just can't see the whole thing.
I know, it's like trying to make it big enough to see.
I know, sorry.
And we would have it here, here. So it would be, yeah, March, May, September, and November.
Okay,
Make sense?
I think so.
So I can take this out, right? Let's delete. And then, okay, thank you for that feedback. That's great. Any other changes you would want to make? So this visual, maybe Hillis, this came from Erica, this visual analytics plan health.
Mhm.
Tell me more about what you think that means.
Yeah, so that's basically when we go over the statistics for the plan and give you a little bit more insight. So we go over the plan assets, we go over how participants are allocated. So in addition to, so with the investment policy statement in the review, we're basically just going over the investments and sort of just reviewing them, whether they're still in good standing, whether we want to use them going forward. The visual analytics actually offers like how participants are investing within those options.
Okay.
So we go over that. We go over also the cash flow of the plan. So kind of distributions as well as contributions going to the plan, whether we're net positive or negative at that particular point. Another major thing, I guess, in there is also just the usage. So the usage of kind of the logins as well as the financial wellness.
Okay. Financial.
And then based off those numbers or whatever we see when we take a look at that, that kind of dictates, the plan health and whether we need to maybe put a little bit more intention towards certain areas to fix what might be lacking in the plan.
Okay.
That kind of segues into the, sorry, should we be raising our hands when we want to speak? Better. Sorry.
Or work group right now.
I was going to say that would feed right into the survey planning, like maybe some of the things that we identify in the plan health, like, oh, we're whatever, we don't have a lot of young members or something, then we want to survey that group to find out why they're not participating or something.
Yep.
And this, the visual analytics, I only have it on here twice. Should it be more frequent? Should it, is twice a year enough? Are they in the right months, do you think?
I would say twice a year is fine.
Okay.
I think on the off meetings, so the ones that don't incorporate visual analytics, maybe go over just the participant engagement aspect of the plan. So how many meetings are that Kim's getting? Are they meeting with CFPs? how many webinars, whether we need to kind of tweak our webinar schedule, those sorts of things, I would say should go in between the
Okay.
plan
Like
health.
So like an analytics review, right?
Or like some more so like a participant engagement review, if you will.
Okay. And then, so those should be on the opposite meetings or on,
Yeah, I mean, we could do it, I guess, in both meetings. It's just pretty time consuming for both. So I would say if we're sort of at an hour and a half target, then it might make more sense to do them kind of on a staggered schedule.
we could also, I mean, this could also be part of the participant outreach committee. Perhaps they review the analytics and make recommendations to the full committee. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that would be perfect too.
Because that was one thing I was thinking was I wasn't sure where the subcommittees, would fit in. Like, I would assume that we would have, I know our subcommittees have met a couple of times, but if your plan is to meet 3 times a year, you can let me know what those days are, and then we'll have an idea. Like if you're meeting in February, then in March, we'll have you do a recommendation, give your, recommendation on participant changes or something. So
Okay.
maybe that's something, I think, Pete, you're in charge of the outreach committee, right? And,
Yeah,
and then is it Dave that's on the finance one?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we might want to figure out what, okay, so let me put that, I'm gonna, well, I guess we'll put it on here for now, and then we can always defer it to a subcommittee later. So if we were doing, gosh, this is really hard to see, sorry, the months. I need to like freeze this pane. So if we're doing the visual analytics in March, then perhaps we do participant. I'm just thinking we're doing this survey. So what do you think? Like maybe May, July is such a light month. I was just trying to like put some more things. Maybe we could do both in that month.
Yeah,
Since
that's
going on. You said it was participant.
just participant engagement review.
Okay. And if we were to put it somewhere else, what would you recommend? Let's see, we have just trying to see what else is lighter. Maybe January. Maybe we do it January and July. That sound good?
Seems good to me. Twice a year, does that seem right, Hillis?
Twice a year seems right. Maybe
Maybe another one.
3 if we can squeeze it in. Yeah.
Maybe yeah, we got a lot. Well, we can throw it on December, I guess, for now. Since hopefully these won't take too long. Hopefully
Let's just do it twice a year, because otherwise we're doing it in December and in January, like 2 months back to back. We won't feel like
Yeah.
why don't we do it twice? And if
yeah.
we adjust, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to chalk it too much. Okay. Was there anything else? Is there anything else? I think this was an event. Anything else people wanted to add?
I have a question about the safety fair. That's generally managed by risk, and I don't know if it's coming back or not. I don't know what the status of that is, but I know the EAC is planning some type of fair. So I don't know if you necessarily want to tie participant education to the safety fair if we don't know the status, or if you want to talk to the EAC about that.
Maybe I'll put, I'm on the EAC and I know we recommended to continue the safety fair. I'll just put safety fair like as an event in September, and if it changes, we can change it. But that was actually a really good way to get out and talk to members about the committee and, explain a little bit more about what we do. So if we need to move it to a different event, we'll just move it around, I guess.
Yeah, maybe instead of calling it safety fair, just I don't know, call it like the
Employee event,
employee event. Yeah,
employee,
I suspect the name will change, even if like the
okay,
premise of like gathering everybody for,
right,
you know, that kind of purpose of education and being together will be
Okay.
kind of the same.
okay,
Cool.
how about that? There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't know if we would want to do this as a ad hoc meeting,
Cool.
but I know probably, especially towards the end of this year, we'll probably have to look into how we're going to implement some of the provisions for Secure Act 2.0, because some of it is even mandatory. So I don't know if we want to make that an item where we're all discussing it, or maybe we just do like a one-off meeting.
What's the timing of when we need to implement whatever we need to implement?
So some of the stuff, so like the elimination of the first day of the month rule for 457, that's pretty much we have to enact as soon as administratively possible. So stuff like that we'll do, probably following this call, but other things like RMD age changes, the catch-up age-based.
Did he freeze? Is it just me?
Oh yeah, he did.
We did. I just want to add that most of the Secure Act changes are not things we implement, with exception to the one item Hillis just mentioned.
Off the top of my head, I can look at the
Rest of
list
them.
and pull out some more, but there are a few.
You cut off a little bit. You froze for a minute. So
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I think you were talking about Secure Act and some of the things that we had to implement. You mentioned one or two, but I think you got cut off after that. You said the first of the month. Oh, there he goes.
He's disappeared.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, sorry. I think I cut off again.
That's okay. Yeah, you mentioned Secure Act in the first of the month change, and then I think we lost you after that.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, so I was saying the first of the month rule, something like that has to be done as soon as administratively possible. So we'll probably, have to do a smaller meeting after this call with people who kind of control the elections. But there are some things that we'll probably have to look at that we have to implement later towards the end of the year to prepare for 2024. So I was saying the catch-up, the age-based catch-up contributions, starting in 2024, they have to be Roth contributions, for example. So if you make $145,000 or more, and that's going to be indexed, if you are trying to do a age 50 catch-up, it has to be Roth. They are also adding a additional catch-up for people between the age of 60 to 63. And same thing applies. It may have to be Roth if they are making a wage of 145,000 or more. There's some other Roth things that happen in 2024, and then the ability to match student loan payments is 2024. So there might be some things that we just need to cover towards the end of the year and talk about if or how we're going to implement some of it.
Okay. Okay.
I was just gonna say, for people who don't know the Secure Act, like I've seen emails about it just because it goes around the finance listservs as well. So there was some legislation passed federally last year, and they called it the Secure 2.0 because there was a Secure 1.0 like 5 years ago or something. And it's the secure part is like making your retirement more secure. That's why they call it that. And then it's making changes to like, yeah, how you can get contributions in and how you can get distributions out, like federally mandated. So we have to fix our plans to be in compliance with this new law. So that's what that's all about.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. So I have this list of just other things that, I wanted to make sure we had on here somewhere. So I can put on that on there as well. The RFP review, I know we should be reviewing our RFPs. I'm assuming that's every 5 years. I don't know. I know that, is it 5 years plus an extension, or is it 3 years and an extension? I can't remember what our board operating guidelines say.
Yeah, so our contract with Mission Square, yeah, so the contracting rules are you have a 5-year contract, and we are now in a contract extension with Mission Square, so we do need to talk about doing an RFP.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess we should build that into the agenda here.
Okay, so yeah. And that's, and we can hire a consultant, I believe, to do that as well. So while we build it into the agenda, it's not necessarily something we have to run. It could be something that we choose to contract out the RFP process, which is pretty common. So yeah, I'll have to figure out where to put that in, or how we, I guess we need to know a little bit more about the process and what the timelines are. So we're in extension. When does the contract expire? Is it is it a calendar year, or is it some other time in the year?
I will need to look. I don't think it's calendar year. Oh, do you remember?
I think it happened in December.
It is calendar year.
And then we're doing, yeah, it just automatically renews for 1 year.
Okay.
There has to be a heads up on the termination of a contract. So usually you want to do a RFP if there is one, well ahead of maybe like a 3-month window where you would have to tell us. I think it's a 3-month window that we would need in order to terminate it in an efficient way.
Okay. Okay, so that would probably be more in, maybe that's our July meeting. I don't know, but we don't have a lot going on. Just gonna throw it in there.
Good.
And it might not be 3 months. It might be just a 60-day notice.
The
But
better.
but I would imagine you would want to at least know your decision before
Yeah,
that. So
yeah, that's good.
so you don't have to wait a full another year if you decide to do something else.
Okay. Oh no, wait, this one is. Okay, great. And what else did I have? And then I have the subcommittee meeting schedule. Also, oh, our annual budget. Again, I think that might be part of the finance committee subcommittee that would then report back to us. But what is the time frame for, assuming the subcommittee, you know, develops the budget and makes for the recommendations to the full committee, and then we recommend it to the board? Like what is the time? Well, right now we don't have any money for Mesero, right? In 2023, is that correct? So I would assume that we would need to draft our budget. Are the participant funds there, are they tied to the annual budget? I mean, is this something we should be planning in June for the following year? Or is it?
Well, I would say if you're also doing the RFP planning, you might want to do the budget planning as well. If you're going to use like a consultant to facilitate that process, because they will charge you for it. So that'd be worked into. Definitely.
Okay. Yes.
Maybe we put it in May, because I do feel like it's.
Okay. Deborah has her hand up. Yes, Deborah. Oh, you're on mute. Okay, good.
Hi, everyone. I was trying to follow the new Brown Act rules where, since I'm not currently a member of the committee, I would talk maybe after the committee deliberated, but I also wanted to just say that I thought this was great. And yeah, definitely having the committee talk about budget stuff before August. So sometimes it takes 2 meetings to get through stuff. So maybe May and July are the ones where the committee talks about putting forward budget items.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then we also, thank you, that's helpful. I think we also then need to catch up right now on our 2023 budget, since we didn't plan for 2023. So I guess I can put that on the March on, so this will be 2024 budget, right? Well, okay, so there's, so this is a budget review. This is just to check in on the budget, but then budget planning. This would be planning for 2024. And then we would still need 2023 budget planning here. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll put it on there and we'll see what happens. Okay. Anything else that anyone sees they want to add, fix? Let's see, I have to look at those. Okay. So 20, you said, so for budget planning, Deborah, you said probably July and May, right? So we would probably need, I had on here budget and reserves review. So I'm assuming that's reviewing our current budget, correct? This would be checking in on our 2023 budget and reserves, but then we'd also need some more 2024 budget planning. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it on the same item as well, because you're digging into everything and then projecting forward.
I only wanted to separate it just so that like it was, you know, we could move the blocks around, I guess, for now, but yeah, I guess on the agenda, I suppose we could do that. Okay, so this one copy and put it here. Is that correct? No, did you say, you said May and July, right? Okay. Okay, I'll probably spread this out a little more so we can read it a little better. Okay, it looks good to me so far. Looks like we have a full plate next meeting. I do want to get the subcommittees. Pete, what are your thoughts on the subcommittee meetings? Did you have a plan at some point to meet like?
Well, for one thing, there's a couple of problems. For one thing, it's unclear to me with all this Brown Act stuff. Do we need to set up something formal like this to have a subcommittee meeting? And for another thing, since virtually everyone on the committee, including me, is an alternate member, and since once again we have the proposal to do away with the alternate members on the proposed for this meeting, it's hard to know whether there is a committee or not.
Well, why don't we just proceed as if, and we'll get to that item next. Assuming things are the same, would you normally have a meeting every other month, or maybe on the off months, or I don't know, you tell me.
Well, I have to know what, we haven't had a meeting in over a year. And I don't really, I'm not even clear who's on the committee now, because there's been some changes in the overall committee procedure. And I also don't know how to go about setting up a public Brown Act committee meeting. I definitely need some help with that, or what exactly the requirements. I mean, if we could just meet someplace, I could easily do that, but I don't really know. It's unclear from all that stuff that Jason said whether it has to be set up so that the public can be involved in it, and I have no idea how to do that.
Okay, Deb Spalding.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree, it's still unclear. We need to figure that out. And scrolling back up to your list, like maybe participant engagement, just in lieu of us knowing what we need to do with the subcommittees, we have put into our work plan participant engagement review. So like if there's a subcommittee or whatever, like some discussion about participant engagement, I think would happen at that time. And let's see, July and December, I think we put it in.
Yeah, January and July.
January and July, yeah. So maybe we just,
Another
for
thing-
that particular one, we talk about it there.
We could do that. Another thing is that I've been asking to get basic participation rates, which is you can't even start having a committee if you don't know what the situation is. I've been asking for that for about 2 years and I still haven't, it's not there. I have no idea how many people are participating.
I thought we got that at one point. 'Cause remember, I think we did get that at one point. But let me look through my emails, and
I haven't seen it.
it was like during a time you were gathering information for a board, and you sent some information to the board of directors. And I think you did get that data, so you were able to say like our participation rate is, increasing by this amount since the deferred comp committee. You remember that?
Oh, sure. I had it then, but that was over 2 years ago, and I haven't had
Oh,
any information on
since then, got it. Okay,
since.
got it.
Yeah, we have it for those past years. That's true. And I don't see how I can possibly have a committee without an ongoing, it would
Mhm.
have it monthly, but at very least quarterly. I have no idea how much people are participating, how much money they're putting in, where they're putting it, or how do you, how can we possibly get anywhere without, that's like, where do you start from?
Mhm. Yeah, we had talked about, I think, me providing that information, and then Mission Square was saying like they could extract it out some of the data. The only thing they don't have is like the denominator of like how many employees. So they can say like we have 400 active, but they don't know out of how many. And so that was the piece I need to provide to them, and then they can give us the percent, and then we can figure out the percent from that.
Well, that still hasn't happened.
Yes, I hear you.
So it's very hard to go anywhere without that.
Yeah.
What do you work on? Where are the strong points? Where are the weak points?
Yeah.
Okay. So I put on here on every meeting participant data due. I would assume, because I didn't think we did talk about having like that on a regular basis, sort of a steady stream of data that's coming in as reports, and that part of the packet, that we could review ahead of time.
Great.
Yeah, could do that. And if there's anything else like that, any other stats that you think we need, or reports that maybe Hillis has that we could, have a calendar due date of when those are due to for the packet or whatever, we can set that up. So I don't know if there's any other, I know we talked about participant data. We probably are going to need some of these. Maybe I can take some, excuse me, maybe I can take some of these topics and then turn them into sort of reports due, have kind of a reports due chart going on here or something, so that we know what data is due when, and that when we come to this meeting, whatever the meeting is, we will have this data, and then we're ready. So for example, like, if we're going to do NAGDA conference planning, we will need the conference dates and travel expense, estimates, things like that. For the safety fair planning, or I could take that up, but yeah, so we can maybe get some of those things ready.
Yeah. In terms of reporting, for visual analytics, I go over like the participant accounts, the number of participant accounts, how many assets are in the plan, the contributions, the number of people that are contributing, that sort of thing. So I can get that like in a report form too before those visual analytic months, and I think that information would be helpful. And maybe beforehand too, I can incorporate some of the other benchmarkings, so you can actually use that for your meetings, Pete, to see what areas, it will just highlight what areas for you that could be improved, whether it is contributions within a certain demographic and things like that.
Sure. Okay.
Well, I still need to know who is currently on the committee and also what the format of the meetings needs to be in terms of Brown Act requirements, if any.
Yeah, I think we need to figure those things out, but like we can't get off topic of what our current agenda is. So so we're kind of limited. We could put that
Okay,
as a
question mark.
to follow up on.
Okay. Connie, can you make a note of that in the minutes? That'd be great. Okay. Any other questions, comments, additions to the draft committee work plan at this point? Just want to make sure. I'm going to play around with a little formatting, make it a little bit easier to read and line up my colors better. But I guess I have to, I'm not allowed to like email it out to the group because of the Brown Act. So I guess I'll have to give it to Connie to put in the next packet. That sound right? Okay. Okay. All right, let me stop my sharing. Okay. All right, any other questions before we move on to the next topic? Excuse me. Okay. Deb, you are up.
All right, thank you, Meadow. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And can you guys see this okay? Probably too small. Huh?
No, that's good.
Good. So just to like reframe what we're doing. So at our last meeting, we talked about fiduciary responsibility, and Meadow shared something she had learned at the NAGDA conference, that one of the groups that she discussed, like, how do you guys structure your advisory committee, said, well, we have an advisory committee, but we have one person who's fiduciary. And that really simplifies insurance, and it's like simplifies who's in charge. And so I think at the meeting, we all liked that conceptually. And so what we said is like, why don't we draft that as a report recommendation and bring that to the next meeting. So that's where we are today. And so I've got a draft here. Maybe it'd be easier if I showed just one page at a time. Okay, so it's not the full report, but it's like the meat of it. So just tried to get in writing what we discussed, what I think we all conceptually liked at the last meeting, and then for us to really hone in on what we want to put as, you know, if there's any language in here we want to change. And then this is the fill in the blank is, you know, who do we want to be that fiduciary? And ideally we would have a recommendation to bring to the finance committee in February so that we can finally clarify this. So I'll walk through what's written here in case you guys didn't have a chance. So this paragraph is just recapping that at the November meeting, we discussed what committee structure would be best. We want to come up with something that'll be, you know, clear about who's doing what. And so our recommendation is that the Deferred Comp Advisory Committee would continue as an advisory body, that we would identify a single Park District staff position to serve as the fiduciary, and that individual would have responsibility for decisions and communication related to the 457 plan. The same person would be the DC Advisory Committee chairperson. And then the advisory committee recommends this position be the blah. The committee chair and the fiduciary would provide an annual report to the board of directors regarding all the activities that have gone on in the advisory committee, including any plan changes, and then some of the stuff we've just been talking about, like the plan, health, employee participation, so that the board would still be up to date and more informed than they have been in the past, where we haven't had regular reporting. So kind of trying to build that in as a way to keep the board in the loop, even though they wouldn't be the fiduciaries, they would still have the information. And then trying to clarify what what responsibilities would the board still have? Because there are certain things that are called out in the board operating guidelines as clearly being board responsibility. So making sure that we're delineating those. So anything related to employee benefits that's in the board operating guidelines says is the purview of the board of directors. And so that would include approving the contract for the deferred comp plan administrators, which is currently in Mission Square, approval of the budget for the deferred comp advisory committee, and then approval of the advisory committee bylaws. Since they created the committee, they would then have control over the budget and the bylaws. So, and then, sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. The alternatives is we are not sure whether the board wants to remain fiduciary. So we did put together an alternative where, again, delineating what the advisory committee's role is and then how it would play out if we kept the board as fiduciary. So this is the alternate for them to be able to compare and contrast in their mind more clearly. So in this alternative, the board would remain the fiduciary. The CFO would be the staff liaison, and the chair would be bringing everything to the board for action. We would, in that case, want to involve, if the board was fiduciary, we would need to officially have someone from general counsel to help advise the board, along with HR, finance, AFSCME, PA, and Retiree Association, and all of them would have to be 457 plan participants. Again, keep the CFO annual report to the board, or to the board finance committee, sorry. And board retains responsibility for decisions related to the plan, employee benefits, approving the budget, and for approving the contract with the deferred comp administrator. So do you guys want me to leave this up, or do you want me to drop it so we can discuss what would be most helpful?
I have a printed copy up. I don't know. So if you can drop it.
I'll drop it.
You didn't mention the last paragraph. Is that still in there, or has that been removed?
What's the last paragraph?
There's a paragraph that starts there's a couple of paragraphs. When the declared state of emergency expires, isn't that part of it? And then additional DC advisory committee.
Well, that's the second memorandum.
We're only looking at attachment 2, which is it's like the one page.
Oh, I see. I've got the wrong.
Confusing. It's like a 1 page and 2 lines.
Yeah, there's another memorandum that's attachment 3, which is the item 6 on the agenda.
Okay. All right. I was in the wrong one. Sorry.
No worries.
I'm sorry, Deborah, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to add a little bit of the thinking that we put into for the alternatives. So Deb and I spent a good amount of time thinking about this. And one of the committee is now required to be more formal, which is a little bit clunky for us right now. And before it was just, very much a working group, and we talked through everything. So I think one of the things I see when I'm looking at how other Brown Act committees work is that our group, we didn't necessarily have a staff liaison appointed. It was kind of like, the chair's doing all this extra work. Some things fall under finance, some things fall under HR. And I think we all learned from that experience that it's more efficient if there's kind of one point person staff liaison. And so, we're thinking the CFO could be the point person staff liaison in either of these alternatives, just so there's somebody to get the work done. Like you said, somebody has to work with Mission Square and get all these statistics. Somebody has to put together, some documentation for the committee to have to review and analyze. And so considering the CFO is responsible for all the retirement funds of the district and has that, responsibility of oversight, we figured that was the best position to hold that role. So whether they become the fiduciary or whether they're just appointed as the major staff liaison, I think we can work out those details, but I found that to be something that was kind of missing, even if it was quietly understood that that might be the case to really like state it, that, like for the finance committee, we're required to put together all the information, do all the behind the scenes work and have it ready for the committee to look at. And we've kind of been missing that little detail. So that was a little bit of how we put together that recommendation to fill those gaps.
Yeah, I think that was sort of how I was starting to feel. I was like, how do I do all of these things? And that, so many other committees have a staff, like even having Connie has been great when we were somebody was just taking the minute, so it's been great having that. But definitely.
As the staff liaison too, it's whoever's responsibility holds that role to check with legal and make sure they're consulting before they bring things forward, like the answer to how do we do a subcommittee, or can we do a subcommittee, like how do we follow up on all that and get the response back? And so we're still complying with the law. So it just makes sense to do something like that.
Okay. Any other feedback?
Well, would this, the DC, this, is that a new person? Would that be replacing if it's a finance department person, would that new person then be the finance department representative, or is this adding a new voting member to the committee? I was unclear about that.
Yeah,
I've agreed to switch.
It would not add to the committee. It would be a swap out. So
Yeah.
you still just have one person from finance.
I see.
Yeah.
Ben, you had your hand up. Is that your question?
No, you guys are doing great work on this. My question is, we can always take it to the board once we agree on this, but prior to doing that I'm still would like to get clarification from the board of what their ultimate goal was, if that's possible, because you guys doing great work, and they might get to them and say, well, wait a second, we intended it to be this instead. So is there a way we can clarify from the board, since I think at least half the board members are ones that even made the original deferred comp or authorized it? So I think I would like to get some clarification from them before we move ahead, just to make sure we're meeting what they want us to meet. That's my comment.
Yes, Deb, thank you.
Yeah, I think the only way to get, again, because of Brown Act restrictions, the only way for us to get their feedback is to bring this to them as an agenda item that gets agendized, and then they talk about it in a public setting. So that's where we're, so with that, and that's why we gave the two alternatives, because we aren't sure whether they want to keep the fiduciary or whether they are happy with having the advisory committee really kind of take more ownership. So we gave them those two options to help them think about it. And then anyway, that was, but I don't think there's a way to get their advice because of the Brown Act restrictions of we can't talk to them as a group, and we're not supposed to talk to them serially either. So the only way to do it is in a public forum, I think.
Deborah.
Yeah, if we were to look back to the finance committee meeting where we last spoke about deferred comp, I recall that the finance committee asked to have the deferred comp advisory committee make a recommendation, right? You guys work out the details, come up with a recommendation that you both agree with that staff and the committee feel comfortable with, and bring it back to the finance committee. I think that was the last direction. So they are looking, I think, if I were to go back and look, to have something brought to the finance committee that can be like we're putting forward here, maybe two alternatives, and discuss it at that level to get that feedback you're asking for, Ben.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. So I would say my first thought on the recommendation, I think on number 3, for example, it wasn't clear because it said the DC committee chair and fiduciary. So I understand that might be the same person, but then it says provide as if it was 2 people. So I think that's not really clear. Also, And of course, that would affect our bylaws because right now we elect the chair, so we would have to figure that out. And then the other was the approval of the bylaws. I think that's one I wasn't clear on why the board would approve the bylaws as long as they're not in conflict with any board operating guidelines or any responsibilities of the board, because really the bylaws are just about committee governance and how we do things and attendance and our elections and things like that. So I guess I'm not clear as to why they would have to approve the bylaws. It seems like the committee would manage that within itself and make a motion to approve it or deny it. And I don't know if the PAC has bylaws. I couldn't find any on the P drive anywhere. So I don't know how they run. I don't know. So I don't know if anybody has any feedback on that.
I think maybe this is an area we should check with legal and see. Yeah, I don't know whether the PAC has bylaws either. And our thinking was along the lines of the budget, that since the board had created the advisory committee, that they had this formal role of approving how we function. But I really don't know. So I think we should check with legal on that.
So
Yeah.
I think it says through the that the responsibilities that they have through the board operating guidelines, and I couldn't see that in the board operating guidelines. I saw in personnel policies related to benefits, but not bylaws or committee governance issues. So I didn't. So this saying that it's in the board operating guidelines didn't seem correct. Like the budget makes sense; they have to approve the money, and then. Personnel policies is what it says, personnel policies and procedures related to benefits. So anyways, so I just wanted to check in on that. Yes, Pete.
I was wondering, what's your rationale, especially since it's contrary to the current bylaws, for having the fiduciary also be the chair of the committee? It seems that those are two really separate things and a lot of extra work for one person. And that person, I mean, it's really changing the structure. That person would really have immense power. And why couldn't you have the chair, as we now have an elected chair, and then this fiduciary being a separate person?
I think that's definitely an option.
Yeah, I am thinking of it in terms of efficiency, and we did talk about this, like, is it the same person? And if someone's the fiduciary and they're responsible for making the decisions about the plan, then the chair having like knowing what goes on, like they decide what goes on the agenda for each meeting. And so then they're responsible for making sure the reports are heard on time and the, discussion involves the right people. So that was the thought process, is like, if you're the fiduciary, you kind of do need to have the power to control things, and it'll be more efficient. But I'm open. That was just our draft.
I agree, Pete, if you don't mind, with Deb. I think we did have a discussion about the layout, and it was more about efficiency. The committee is still going to be in place. There's still going to be conversations and review and recommendations, but just having the chair separate from the fiduciary, it just added another level, and just to be efficient, it made sense.
Well, I sort of see the functions as very different. And also in the real world, if this person's going to be the CFO, they've got 9 million things to do other than this committee, and they can't devote the kind of attention, and they wouldn't. Right now, the chair is sort of an impartial person offering everyone a free choice, and setting up all these meetings. I don't see how one human being could do all that when they already have, if they're the CFO, obviously this is many things they're responsible for, and they're not going to be able to devote the time and organization that someone like Meadow does, who separately, I see it as extremely inefficient, and one's got nothing to do with the other. I don't see how one person who already has more than a full-time job is going to be able to do all those things. It's enough to be the fiduciary without being the chair, which is a whole separate function that really one having, I don't see very much to do with the other.
Okay, thanks, Pete. I could see it being the same person myself. I think maybe what would help is more specifically defining the role of the chair, because I think maybe we all have different ideas of what the chair is and what they do. So, like Deb, you said, they control what goes on the agenda. Like, well, okay, like, is that an issue that we have? Then, like, maybe that's part of the bylaws that says, this is how the agenda gets made. Like, so maybe we just need to define that more clearly, like what the role of the fiduciary / chair is, and then, and maybe that can take out some of the concern. Does that sound reasonable, Pete, to you? Or, I mean,
this is all pretty vague. I mean, we're talking about basic changes to the whole committee, and it's not even clear who's what, or, I mean, we really need to be able to have something, talk about it at a meeting, review it, and go to the next meeting. I mean, just to go forward with the changes that fundamental, not even being clear about what the function of this person is. And I don't know, that doesn't seem right to me, but that's just my opinion.
Thanks, Deborah.
I think, Pete, you have a valid point that making sure we define the roles is really important. If we go to kind of how the other committees behave, you're correct. There is a chairperson that basically runs the meeting, and they're running the meeting. And as I mentioned, the staff liaison is the one that is charged with bringing forward the items of interest from previous minutes and, requests of the committee, and presenting those items completely. And then if you look back to the old finance committee information where we talked about the role of a fiduciary, the role of the fiduciary, as I understand it, is that once the decision is made to enact something, they would have the authority to do whatever the next steps are to get it enacted, whether it was take it to the board of directors because they are the ones that have to make that decision, or to sign an amendment that says we can tweak our Roth, So the fiduciary would be able to act on those things at whatever's, legally allowed. And that would create that efficiency. So as I said, I would be okay with either way of keeping a chair that was rotating, or and just making sure that the fiduciary or the staff representative was clearly defined, so that streamlining is what we're all looking for is happening.
Okay. Sorry, I know, Deb, you have your hand up. Or, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I'm actually editing. I'm trying to put some of these edits into the Word doc. Is it helpful if I share my screen and because I think you're like the edits, we do want to get a recommendation. I would love to get a recommendation to actually bring to the finance committee, but if we're working on it together real time, maybe that would be easier. And then Pete, we can make sure that we're adding in some clarity that you're feeling is missing right now about what's the role of the chair, what's the role of the fiduciary. Would that be helpful?
That would be, although another issue is the alternatives. there's some really fundamental changes there, and that I'm not comfortable with. But that's a second issue.
I think I also have issues with the alternative that's provided. That wasn't something that the committee recommended, or that we had, gotten behind. So I don't believe that's a good alternative to provide. I do have concerns with our time. What time are we supposed to go till 12? So we've got, 22 minutes to finish our agenda. I agree that we should make changes live. I think the problem too, though, that I'm looking at is this also affects our bylaws, our current bylaws. So we have these current bylaws, right? And now we're making a recommendation that's outside of the bylaws. So I think we might want to start with the bylaws and look at what it already defines thing as and sort of branch out from there, because I think, we all looked at the bylaws, came, to an agreement on the bylaws, and, if we want to tweak it, that's fine. But I think we do need to clarify the staff liaison. The staff liaison could be a fiduciary that attends all the meetings and makes and carries out sort of the orders or the recommendations of the committees and brings that to the board. I do want to make sure that we also consider the role of the fiduciary, that their job is always to act in the best interest of the members. And so I really think it's important to clarify that, because I do think there is going to be an inherent conflict with, no offense, the CFO, right? Is there to serve the needs of the district, to look out for liability of the district, all of those things. There is an inherent conflict there of who are you loyal to, right? Are you loyal to the district and, legal issues? For example, if there was a legal problem that came up and our members were affected and we had done something wrong in the district that was going to expose us to this huge liability, and legal is saying, don't say anything because, this will, it'll expose our liability in a lawsuit later, there's lots of issues there. So I think the point of the advisory committee is to give the perspective of the members, and right now we already have the problem of there's not really a management representative on here, we have someone from HR and someone from finance, but are you representing HR and finance for the district, or are you representing managers? There's a lot of questions here about so I think it is important to sort of really correctly define these roles and make sure that everything is covered very specifically, because I think this sort of short, 1, 2, 3 is a little too short for the committee to feel comfortable with and know exactly what they're recommending. I think, I didn't see this ahead of time, so I didn't know this was coming. I didn't, I know we had talked about a few things, but then there was some additional things added on here. The alternative wasn't aware was going to be presented. So I just think there's a lot more to discuss here. That's my thoughts on it. Deborah? You're on mute.
I had my hand up from before, but I will add that the alternative, remember, we've repeatedly said that we will, when we go to the finance committee, we will bring the clear recommendation of the advisory committee, but we may also bring a staff recommendation as, part of the finance committee report. So this is just putting forward what might be a staff recommendation to bring forward some of the things that we've talked about in the past with having general counsel be part of the committee, or having, just some of those other items.
I don't think that's clear, because at the top it talks about this is the recommendation of the committee, and then it says alternatives. It doesn't say staff recommendation, or, I think we did talk about that if staff had it, if we couldn't agree and completely different, that we would do our best to come together, and work together to find one recommendation to give to the board. But that if for some reason we were really off base and we couldn't come together, that staff could come with their own recommendation. But then it was presented in the format of this is an alternative recommended by the committee, which the committee did not recommend.
It'd be great to hear the concerns of that alternative from the committee members.
Hey, I just need to pipe in. I mistakenly clicked close captioning when I meant to raise my hand. And
Okay.
I don't know how to undo that. Connie, I don't know if you know how to do that, but
That's okay.
that's what that participant has enabled closed captioning is about.
Okay. I think it's only on your screen though, isn't it?
Of course.
I don't know.
So now you can know what we're saying. Pete.
Well, there's a number of problems with the alternatives, and if that's a staff recommendation, that's fine. None of these have been discussed or certainly not approved. And if we want to discuss them at some point, that's fine. But I would like to make a motion to remove the alternatives from the committee recommendation. And if you folks want to make it as a staff recommendation, then more power to you. But this is not a committee recommendation. It's not something we've approved. We've talked quite a bit about adding these other members to the committee, and there was a lot there were a lot of people who were against that. And this isn't something I would like to make a motion that the alternatives be removed, and certainly you have every right to add them as a staff recommendation. I'm not saying you shouldn't send them to the board, but these should not be a committee recommendation, and that's my motion.
You guys want me to share my screen so that we're doing this real time?
Sure. Well, the only thing I was thinking was, so there's a motion on the floor, but this is what exactly is this document? So that I can just, as far as,
This is like supposed to be the recommendation that would go to the finance committee.
okay, so it sounds like we have issues with or Pete you have issues with the alternatives, but then there's also the live version. So I'm not sure exactly if we're making a motion. I guess if we were to make a motion, would be to accept the recommendations or not to accept the recommendations.
How about we just like, instead of voting, we just like edit it as we go, and then
I just have to deal with the motion that's on the floor. That's the only thing.
oh, gotcha.
So we do have a motion to, can you restate that, Pete?
To remove everything under the underlined word alternatives from the committee recommendation. And that's my motion, but I want to make it clear that if you folks want to present that as a staff recommendation, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so that's the motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Ben seconds the motion. Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Discussion. Is it necessary? I mean, can we just change it as Deb said in the document here and just put on the bottom staff recommendation? Does it have to be a whole separate document? Can we keep it on here and just edit it?
Yeah, I think this works to do it, to like have the advisory committee have a clear recommendation and then have staff have a separate recommendation. I think that works fine.
Yeah, and I do also think it's I think one of our important responsibilities is to try to make sure we have a clear recommendation that lines up with staff and the committee. If for some reason we can't, that's understandable. So if this is the recommendation, like I'm not clear if it's a recommendation of staff. In other words, we don't want to do what the advisory committee or recommends, and we want to do this. Like I'm not clear, or is this staff is also recommending, what the committee is saying and is providing an additional alternative. Like that's not clear to me. And so if, for example, the staff is saying this first one that the committee wants is a terrible version and we think we should go with this version, that's fine. But like, maybe we should be having a discussion too. Like, are we missing something, or is there something that could also bring us back together to the same recommendation? So,
I think what you're saying is like the deferred comp advisory committee and staff are recommending something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if
we can agree, but that's what we ideally as a committee we want to make. But there could be, so maybe we can all agree to this. I mean, I know not everybody's here who needs to agree of the staff side, like
right.
Other people will weigh in on the staff side, but ideally we have one recommendation and then there's going to be a separate thing that's the staff recommendation that's an alternative.
Okay, wait, so just to clarify that, so if other staff are gonna weigh in after this, I mean, I think we need to know what staff, if staff wants something different, we need to know what that is, and that they need to be here to weigh in on it so we can understand and make our recommendation. I mean, in other words, we need to be able to hear from that staff. So
Yeah,
that
I mean, the way it works, like I know Deborah can jump in, but like our reports for the finance committee are going to go through review by other people, and I can't predict what changes are going to be made at this time. Like, I won't know till it goes through the full review. So I can just map out our edits here, but I can't promise that it won't be tweaked later.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from the committee members here, so I don't think there's big opposition from myself, Deb, or Monica of the recommendation by the advisory committee. But like Deb said, it will have to go through review of legal and the general manager's office before I can say, is the district staff recommendation exactly the same, or does it have some nuances? We haven't gone through that full detailed process. So I think, Deb, you probably have to take out and staff. You could put a comment that says the goal is to have a joint recommendation, but at this point, we don't have that until we put forward something for review. And then the goal of having the alternatives was to give the board members an option to remain the fiduciary. It wasn't because we didn't like the idea of one fiduciary, a single fiduciary. It was just to provide the board with something to chew on if they were uncomfortable with that idea.
Pete.
Well, it sounds like we really need to move this to the next meeting, or there's no way we can do it at this meeting, especially since there's only 10 minutes left. But come up with something and give it to us more than a week in advance, like a month in advance, and let us review it. And it sounds like it's quite possible for us to come up with, we're not that far apart. But I don't see how we could do this in the next 10 minutes. And if you, what I understand what you just said was that you need to have all these other persons' input and then get that, and then we can discuss that at the next meeting.
Yeah, just to be clear, like we won't get the input from legal, like they are the final reviewers of finance committee material. So we're not going to be able to get it to them first and then bring it back here.
So are they not able to, because I think that was what we talked about, was having legal to help us weigh in so that when we make these decisions, we're not, then we made a decision and then legal says you can't do that. We're like, well, I wish we knew that ahead of time because we could have discussed it more. So I thought that was what we were going to do, was have legal come and help us, and be sort of a subject matter expert.
Maybe we could have them at the next meeting.
So is the concern the alternatives? Is that's what's holding it? Because it seems like we're in agreement with the first three items that were proposed under the Deferred Compensation Advisory Committee recommendations. And it doesn't sound like anyone's objecting to removing the alternatives. I just want to point out, we've been trying to identify the setup of this committee for now more than 12 months. And the last finance committee, they made it clear that they want us to provide them a recommendation. And if what's holding us up is the alternatives, then let's remove the alternatives and move forward with what we did agree to, which is the top three items.
I just want to point out that we didn't agree to the top three items. Like I said, there were a few items that were added in here that were beyond what we agreed with. And I think there's also differing understandings of what the roles will mean. So I think that's the issue. And I understand it has taken a long time. We've also had a lot of delays due to a lot of extraneous circumstances. We haven't even gotten to our agenda of work plan that we need to be working on because we've been so distracted with other issues. But I do agree with Pete that I think I really want to get a recommendation clear too. It's just that, again, I'm not clear what this means, but it seems like there's information in here that is not clear again. And so it's a little hard when we just get this information a few days before, and then we have to discuss it here in a public meeting and then make decisions when, we're not even understanding, the understanding that we had put forward has changed, and then staff recommendations are not written up as staff recommend, there's a lot of issues here. So it's definitely not intentional. I think everybody wants the same thing. And I do want to come together with a recommendation from the advisory committee. And I think we're close. I think we're almost there. But I think we do need to, I think there needs to be very clear roles of what the advisory committee role is, what the chair's role is, what the fiduciary's role is, and or staff liaison. I think that needs to be very clear because we are essentially modifying our bylaws. That's essentially what we're doing. And I think we're okay with that, but everybody seems to have a different idea of what that means and what that looks like. So I think it's really important, since we're making this major structural change to our committee, that, we have the opportunity to do that. I mean, yeah, this Brown Act is very difficult because I would love to just hop offline and knock this out with Deb or whatever. We would just do some track changes and get a new version out. Unfortunately, with the Brown Act, we have to continue to meet in a public setting. So, and I can't meet individual. I don't know. I'm very confused as to what I can and can't do. So, it's not for lack of trying.
Can you, just so that we can capture it and try to work on it?
Yep.
So the issues that I understand we need to clarify is what specifically is the fiduciary's role? What specifically is the chairperson's role?
Yes, the chairperson, the staff liaison.
And what's the staff liaison? What was that? I missed that.
Mentioned a staff liaison person that,
Which is currently Connie. Is it like clarifying the secretary's role? Is that right?
I don't know. I know Deborah had mentioned it, so I don't, maybe you can say what.
Like in our board subcommittee, in our board committees, there's a staff person assigned to every committee, and they're the ones that put together the packet.
Okay.
And make sure that things are followed through and, bring forward items. So
that would be the chair. Is that the chair?
In some cases, it's not the chair, it's the staff liaison. And we don't really have that written up in our bylaws. So, this is still going to take some time. Going to the finance committee doesn't mean it can't come back to the deferred comp committee again before it goes to the board for approval. It's just really, it is hard when every time we have this discussion, it's hard to move forward a joint committee consensus. So,
well, there's a motion on the floor that I think would bring us a lot closer to achieving a consensus. And that is to get rid of the alternatives as part of the staff meeting. I think we should act on that one way or the other.
Okay, so there is a motion, there is a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Connie, did you want to do a roll call vote? Or
Sure. Connie Swisher taking roll call vote. Chair Meadow Darcy.
Aye. I'm sorry. Wait. Aye. Yes.
Pete Volan.
I'm voting yes, and just to be very clear, the motion is to remove the alternative section from the staff recommendation. Yes, I'm voting yes on it.
Ben Guzman.
Aye.
Deb Spalding.
Aye.
And Monica Alvarez. We have a situation that's coming up here. I know I guess the legislative moved their meeting till 12:30, and in talking with Prime Gov, we only have one encoder for our meeting for Zoom, for YouTube. So I don't know if you want me to reschedule this meeting for a little later in the day or tomorrow or something, but I'm pretty much at a loss of what we should do. This has never happened before. So Alex is aware of it, and so,
Okay, let's finish off the motion real quick. So Monica,
okay.
vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, Monica.
Aye.
Aye, okay, very good. Okay, so motion passes to remove the alternatives. Okay. So moving forward on that, obviously we're running out of time. I would suggest doing a special meeting. We can do so in the next week or two, and only focus on this. Hillis, you don't have to attend if you don't need to. It can just be the committee members, you know, and the alternates, whatever, just to get this done. And you know, we can do that quickly so that we don't run into the in-person meeting other issue that's coming up. You know, I don't know, or if you want to just continue the meeting and we can continue the agenda. I don't know. We didn't finish our agenda, so not really sure. Our staff liaison, I suppose, is supposed to advise on what to do in the situation, but yeah. So I think we need to.
Their meeting starts at 12:30.
Okay.
So, you know, we have a couple more minutes, but I know,
Yeah. And our meeting got shortened to 1.5 hours too. So it's
correct. Yeah.
yeah. So, I'm, you know, if it's an ad hoc meeting, do we have to still have to Brown Act it? You know, okay. So, yeah, I don't know whether any other way to deal with this other than to, I think we're close. I think we're very close. I think we just need some better definitions. I think, you know, staff took a good crack at it, and I think we can, you know, finish that up. I don't really know. I mean, I've got my own track changes that I made modifications to the document myself, so I don't know how to share that information so that we can get a solid version back that, you know, I don't know. This is.
Well, I
sure.
think one way or the other, we need a solid version, and we need to have at least a couple of weeks to study it, is all I'm saying.
I have information I can share around roles and responsibilities. I know last time we discussed we wanted it to funnel through one person. So just like the examples of the committee structure I had sent to Jason, is there somebody that I can just maybe share some information with to help you all out on the decision?
Will you send it to Connie, please?
Okay.
And she can distribute it to us. Thank you.
Now, what's our deadline to get it to the finance committee? If not the next one, the one following?
Okay, finance committee. I don't have a calendar in front of me. One second.
It's on my document. The next one is February 22nd. We just had one yesterday, and then February 22nd. And I don't think there was a deadline. I think they just said to return with a recommendation. I know before I was trying to hurry, and we agreed, like, okay, but like the important part is to get it right, because we don't want to go before board finance and have different recommendations. And I do think it's best if we can get staff and the committee to agree, because like you said, as it goes through the chain of staff approvals, then there can be some advocacy along the way. I mean, they're not going to call the advisory committee and say, hey, by the way, we're changing your recommendation, which is strange to me. I think they probably should, but they're going to call staff. So, you know, I don't know how to deal with that. But I think that's another concern I have, is that even if we made a recommendation, it may be altered, which is strange to me, that our recommendation can be altered. But
Yeah, the advisory committee recommendation wouldn't get altered, but the staff recommendation could get altered. So saying that we're like absolutely in alignment is the part that's.
so maybe we can have our recommendation if we're all in agreement of it, and then at the bottom you could be like, staff, you know, agrees with this, and then that could be sent up, and that may change, but not the
Yeah. Yeah. And so getting to Monica's question about, so yeah, the meeting is the 22nd, to get it like in the packet and have the review. I think we would need it by like
10th.
10th. Okay.
Yeah.
February 10th. Yeah,
Be
and
the
then
latest.
which would also be March 10th if we looked at March as well.
March meeting is the 22nd again.
Yeah, be about the same.
And so the same, the 10th of March for the cutoff.
I think we maybe just do our best to meet as soon as possible, and yeah, I mean, I think if everybody took their version, I guess this is the way we could do it. Everybody took their version and do some track changes or something specific, and then we'll come together, one document, and we'll edit it together and move forward that way. I'm happy to do that. Okay.
Yeah, can we get a copy of the Word doc so we can just work on it ourselves on the side?
Yeah. Great. Okay. And so finding another date, do we do that now, or is that something Connie will do later?
I can check with everybody. Hopefully I'll get that by the end of the day for you guys.
Okay. Thank you so much, Connie. Thank you, everyone. And we'll keep going. All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks.